Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanne. Michael and Jeanne share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanne, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanne Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Welcome to our show today, Mindshifter Radio. My name is Michael Ryce, and I am here to support you, along with Jeanne, who isn't quite here yet. She will be shortly, in the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. We're delighted that you're on the show. Jeanne is actually in a coffee shop where, in order to get a wireless connection, she had to make a purchase, and it's taking her a couple of minutes to get that done. We're on the road traveling. You know, we're so smart. We were in Florida, and it was sunny and warm, and now here we are in St. Louis. And they're talking about a huge storm coming in, although I'm not sure if it's going to reach. I'm hoping it's not, from Texas up through the Midwest. So we'll see if it gets as far as St. Louis. Right now, it's actually not too bad. It's a little bit of rain and probably about 45 degrees. So that's decent for St. Louis in December. But I guess we're going to get to taste some winter. It's a thing that humans, I don't think, were designed to live in. Anyway, we're delighted you're with us, and Jeanne will be on if you're trying to get in the chat room. If you'd give it just a minute or two, she will be tapping in, and I'm sure her sweet voice will pop in any time now saying, hey, sweetie, I'm here, and we are here. We're doing an invitation, as usual, to celebrate or to honor Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and to support those who have had to engage in the insanity of war, being finished with the insanity of war by we humans becoming humans again, by we humans functioning as human beings, functioning as love. And our definition for a human life is hold a newborn child. We just got to do that, and it was awesome with our first grandchild. So Adeline Norick weighed into the world a couple of nights ago at 7 pounds, is doing awesomely well, is, of course, beautiful and sweet, and just sleeping all the time. We got about 1 minute of open eye time last night. That was about it. We got to see her eyes for the first time. In any event, what's this thing about Memorial Day and Veterans Day? Well, here's the score. We have war on planet Earth because we have hostile people. We have fearful people. And we are the hostile and the fearful people. And the reason why there is war is because when we're hostile or fearful, if we live in the standard American world, then we blame somebody else. I guess it's really pretty much universal. There are a few cultures who don't do this, but it's pretty much universal now. It's taken over. It's an infection. And that is that I have something going on inside of me that I think you caused, which, of course, is ludicrous and a joke to say you made me. It's ridiculous. But we've become so habitually addicted to not looking inside of ourselves that we project and blame everybody else for the condition of our physiology as though we weren't responsible. So what we're looking to do with this work based in my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again?, is to restore the original Aramaic idea of forgiveness to planet Earth. And that Aramaic idea of forgiveness is a tool with which you go inside yourself and remove your hostility and fear. You collapse the projection that it's got anything to do with anybody else, and once you collapse that projection, you're able to crack open your own dissociated states of mind and reach directly to what's hiding under the surface. I love what Carl Jung said. He said, we do not become enlightened by imagining images of light. We become enlightened by bringing the darkness to the light. There is no better tool on planet Earth that I know of than the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness. If you're not familiar with how that tool works, if you're new to the show, we're delighted that you're here. I don't care what's going on in your life. I don't care what traumas or dramas you've had, what traumas or dramas you've done. When I say I don't care, I mean it doesn't matter. Of course I care what's going on in your world. However, it doesn't matter what happened or what you did. All of that can be removed. It is possible. It doesn't matter how far in the depths of despair one is. We've seen people over and over and over again who 3, 4, 5 days, a week, 2 weeks, 6 months after being at our first forgiveness workshop, confided in us that they were planning suicide that day, and they've put the suicide away and are back to being excited about your life. One who is in depression, one who is in pain, one who is planning suicide is doing so because there's an internal condition that they don't know how to change. We know how to change it. The technology is called forgiveness. It was brought forward on planet Earth 2,000 years ago by a man named Yeshua. That's the man who's popularly known known as Jesus. His name wasn't Jesus. His name was Yeshua. His teaching was not religious. His teaching was, here's how you heal your life. That's all. It's got nothing to do with all the dogma and doctrine and all the stuff that men do to control other men and keep men in fear and keep men at war. It's got to do with, here's how you live your life as a human being. So we're here to restore that, and we're here to support you in that. So let us see if Jeanne has gotten online yet. Jeanne, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
I can. Awesome.
All right. Yes. I'm on, and David's on. Dr. Tim's not with us. And I'm getting the chat room up, so anybody that's listening, give it just a few minutes and then hit a refresh. It should be up now.
Awesome. Good morning, David. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Michael, and nice to hear you and Jeannie's voice and line, and knowing that things are going well in your world and that your daughter's doing well. And I know you are just elated to have a new grandchild.
It is exciting. It is exciting to have that first one.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm sure it'll be exciting when we have the second and third and 10th too. But right now, one is just awesome, and it's such a delight to hold that little being, and the direct experience of who we are as humans is pretty powerful, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so, Jeanne, do we have any callers? Our call-in number, by the way, if you have a question or a thought for us, is 646-200-4169. 646-200-4169. If you have a question for us, call in and hit 1. When you hit 1, that will put you in the queue. Jeanne will know that you want to talk to us, and she will key you in. And, Jeanne, do we have any callers at this moment?
No, we don't.
Okay. Well, if the chat room's up and everything's on, do you want to just come and join me and we'll head down the road a piece?
I will do that. So if you're in the chat room, I'll be back in just a few moments. We're going to move down the road to a different location, but it should be up and running. I'm going to leave David on, so he'll be able to talk with us.
Cool. Awesome. So what's happening, folks, is, as I say, Jeanne and I are on the road. My son and my former wife, CJ, are at a restaurant about 10 minutes down the road or 5 minutes down the road, and we didn't quite make it there to start the show, so I stopped and Jeanne went in to get the chat room hooked up so that you can be on there, and she's going to disappear from it now, but that turns us on and has us able to communicate. If we get any callers, it's going to be a few minutes before she'll be able to key anybody in for calls. So we'll be heading 5 minutes down the road. She'll get hooked up again, and then we'll be able to take callers and answer things in the chat room. In the meantime, a question came up from someone that, just 1 second here. This doing the radio show from the road is so much fun. It's so amazing. And here comes Jeanne. Hey, sweetie. I got it. Oh, you had to make a purchase in order to get online. You had to buy a cup of coffee. Oh, boy.
Small sacrifices.
Small sacrifices, she says. Here she is doing drugs. Doing drugs to get us on the show. Jeannie, that is just so self-effacing and such sacrifice. It's awesome to watch you do that. So we're talking about the fact that we don't normally drink coffee, but in order to get a code at the coffee shop and then get online to start the show, Jeannie had to buy coffee. So one of those with all that sugar and foam and stuff in it, all that sweet stuff, Well, so there was a question that came from somebody I was talking to the other day, and they're like, if I am this thing called love, if you tell me that I am love, why am I angry? Why am I frustrated? Why am I scared so much? And of course, what followed that was, and of course I know why I'm angry, why I'm scared, why I'm frustrated so much. It's my children's fault. It's my parents' fault. It's the economy's fault. It's my spouse's fault. It's somebody else's fault. And I'd offer that this is a no-fault process. There is a fault in our minds. David Bohm, a physicist, called it sustained incoherence. And that sustained incoherence is the fault that a so-called human mind or a human body whose mind is operating out of hostility or fear is locked into that state of sustained incoherence. And I had an interesting discovery the other day in a worksheet that I did. And I was doing a worksheet around my dad and frustration. And what I found when I got down to the bottom line was the frustration for me. And one of the key things in the worksheet is always looking at the feeling and then the thought that comes from the feeling. And what I discovered in that situation was that it was a thoughtless feeling for me. And what this keys into is, okay, it's a power person dynamic. So there's not necessarily a thought that comes with an energy that we received genetically and then was reinforced environmentally by our power person. There may be something down there somewhere in the genetics that, at least for me in this situation, hasn't surfaced yet. There's something there, but in terms of was there a cognitive thought involved in having that frustration? No. This worksheet was actually around, or at least it ended up with my dad, but where it started was, it was a worksheet on, when things aren't going right, aren't going the way I want them to go. And the word that came out of it in the goal, as I started to really look, was the word obey. And so these things weren't obeying. And what that keyed me into, and then I did a worksheet on Dad, was when I didn't obey, there was this frustration and anger that came forward, and judgment, and disapproval. And so what I found was that this is something that can come up in a heartbeat, and it's just a pure power person dynamic. It's something we receive genetically, and it's something that comes forward when there's a situation of resonance, at least in that particular situation, of obey. And so in cleaning up that word obey came this power person dynamic with Dad and this thoughtless state of just this frustration, anger, and such. And so that was, for me, a new discovery, a new piece in the puzzle, because always it's looked like there's always a thought behind the feeling. And now I see there are two things, and sometimes the thing behind the feeling is just a replication of the power person dynamic. And this replicate mind just replays it and replays it. So it doesn't, if you're in that state of frustration, disapproval, if we lived in a dynamic of a power person who, no matter how hard we tried, no matter how much we did, no matter how many times we worked as the best we could to do it right, the power person would still find something wrong, would still find some way to disapprove and come forward with that disapproval. or that anger or that frustration, then having received that genetically and having played it out 1,000 times with the power person who gave out their daily dose of disapproval, then what happens is that dynamic becomes blocked, and resonance comes along and brings it up. And when you start to crack it open, what you find is that you're doing exactly what your power person did, the 3 power person behaviors. And if you weren't with us on the show when we were doing the codependence work, if you look back in the archives, you'll see I think it was about 16 days we spent on codependence back in April. And you can listen to those archives, and we talk about if we're strictly functioning out of carbon-based memory, out of the memory bank, then that memory bank holds whatever has come to us genetically and whatever has been reinforced via interaction with our power person. And so when functioning out of that, there are only 3 behaviors. The first behavior is that we'll do whatever we did to get along with our power person, and that'll be what we'll do when there's no stress. When stress starts to build, there'll be a shift, and the shift will move us into doing whatever we did to resist and survive with our power person. And then when we become ultra-stressed, we'll do what our power person did that we hated the most. Now, you may not believe this about yourself. You may live in denial and not be able to see that. If you live in denial and you're not able to see that, just know this. You do exactly what your power person did. That doesn't mean you have to condemn your power person. Doesn't mean you have to judge your power person. Doesn't mean you have to blame your power person. It means you have to be responsible for what you took on genetically and what was reinforced environmentally, and forgive. Remove that. Elsewise, you will serve up that hostility, that rage, that fear, that disapproval that your power person did. And that's just the way it works. And so when you become aware of that, you get an opportunity to forgive, you drill down. And what happens with the forgiveness worksheet process, and if you're not familiar with that process, if you go to the right side of the website, www.whyagain.com, whyagain.com, on the right side, there's a link that says download worksheets. If you download the worksheets, the second link is the latest reality management worksheet. It's been renovated significantly in just the last 10 days or so. But download that, and what that worksheet will help you to do is to drill down into these dynamics within yourself. And David, I acknowledge you and appreciate you for the fact that you're the one who realized when we were 40 days out from the end of the year that it would be a good time to come together and do 5 worksheets a day for 40 days. And so this power person piece, it's been a while since I've done that, and doing the worksheets on a daily basis and just drilling down for myself, has given me the opportunity to see some new application of the principles and the ideas. So I thank you for that, David. You are appreciated.
You're most welcome, Michael. And one of the thoughts that I have as you were talking about that, the part where not necessarily having to understand the thought that's around the feeling, reminds me of a conversation that I had with Marie yesterday, or at least it was in texting, I think is how we were communicating, was that the worksheet in itself doesn't always, there are other tools to use in addition to the forgiveness worksheet.
Absolutely.
I've discovered for myself that the worksheet will all of a sudden surface some things. I have no idea, any understanding of it. And sometimes if I spend too much time wanting this forgiveness worksheet to do the job, doesn't always provide me with it. Kind of like a carpenter, I can have a ball peen hammer, or I can have a claw hammer, or a sledgehammer. And which tool am I using for that particular energy that's surfacing? So keeping in mind for the audience that there are additional tools that Michael has created from this work, and there's different.
Yeah, David, that's a good reminder, and that we want to use the appropriate tool at the appropriate time. And For each person, the appropriate tool is different. So somebody who might really be into using worksheets will use the worksheet for virtually everything. Other people, like I remember there's a woman that we met in Atlanta several years ago. She actually has been to Heartland 8 or 10 times. And she would not touch worksheets. She just wouldn't do them. But she loved the work. She loved the breath. And she really liked the Mind Shifter tool. So she would use the Mind Shifter tool on a regular basis. Last year we were in Florida, and this woman's been around the work for about 15 years. Last year she came to a Y workshop, probably her 30th Y workshop, and she went, I see, I got it, I understand how forgiveness works. And now her statement about the reality management sheet is, this is my best friend, I can tell it anything. Now that was last year, and I had her on the list for the new version of the worksheet and sent it to her, and she's actually communicated 3 or 4 times about just the new fine points of the worksheet and giving me feedback on it, which several people have done, and I thank you for that. But she's using this tool on a regular daily basis, where for 15 years being involved in this work, she wouldn't touch it. And so a Mind Shifter can be an awesome tool. Let's just recount some of the tools that we've got. In the Getting the Stress You Need, we have the Mind Goal Management Sheet. That's an awesome tool for managing your mind and developing your will. In the, of course, Mind Shifters, we've got the Mind Shifter tool. That's a way to drill down into unconscious dynamics very rapidly. The Still Point Breathing. In communication, did you hear what I think I said? There's a 7-step responsibility communication tool. In Healing Through Relationships, there's the commitment, the relationship commitment. Promise to trust you enough. Jeannie? Yeah, and 3 early memories in Healing Through Relationships. So there's a whole series of tools, and of course, we've addressed many of those tools in the radio shows over the last year or so. And we have DVDs on our website if you want to order and get in touch in the Codependence to Interdependence workshop. We have a Codependence to Interdependence worksheet. So there's a whole series of things for how to go inside the deepest parts of your hidden mind and clean them out. You know, there's an old myth that said, be careful, you don't ever want to open Pandora's box. It's dangerous to look in there. But what they didn't tell us, of course, Pandora's box is reminiscent or symbolic of the unconscious or the dissociated mind, or what in the ancient scriptural teachings they called the desert. And what they didn't tell us when they said don't open Pandora's box, and the whole world is living on top of Pandora's box, that's why the world is so insane, they didn't tell us that if you didn't open Pandora's box, it defined you and it ran your whole life. And so what we're looking to do with each of these tools is to quite literally open Pandora's box and clean out what never belonged. The primo tool is always the reality management worksheet. What Yeshua put together 2,000 years ago is so awesome and so powerful, and it is the core and it is the key. When we're working with people, there are actually several tools that are built into the reality management worksheet. It's not just forgiveness. There are several tools there, but where the major shift occurs is where the Aramaic forgiveness process takes place. David, any other the tools come to mind offhand for you? Yeah, the Codependence worksheet. Got that?
Well, there's the responsibility communication. I don't know if I heard you mention that one or not. And then there's the, the one that you actually developed and we haven't used it much is the tool for getting in touch with the power person about the stories, writing about the different stories that we come up with. And one of the reasons that I brought this up is because the fact that the mind figures things out really quickly, really, really quickly. One of the reasons to have support people is because that on my own, my mind will figure out just exactly what it is that I need to avoid, and then we'll avoid it. It's been practiced, it's been doing this for generations. And so when I'm connected with someone else and they can remind me of the tools, that was kind of what happens with when I was working with Marie, in that, I get to be reminded of it as well, too. So it's very important to have to me, having the other person there is a tool. That is the real key to knowing which tool that it is that I want, knowing intuitively touching in with someone. So maybe there's some questions out there on the line now.
Yeah, that ancient African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together is definitely a very important tool. Community creates a space that is so powerful for healing, a space that most people will never be able to do on their own and by themselves. So that community idea is of key importance. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, and sometimes, Michael, there is that space where we do have to go through things on our own. Me and this big movie buff that I am, and one of the things I like about that you and I have in common, that I think that there's a tremendous amount of messages that get put through in the media, in the movie industry. And one of them was in that movie with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, Joe versus the Volcano, and he made a statement in there as he was getting ready to spend the night by himself, and the guy says, "You mean you don't have anyone?" He said, "Well, there's just we have to go through things on our own, and there are times that we need other people as well too." So I think that's kind of what that proverb, that's what it means to me. And sometimes, I need to work through something really quickly or do something, and other times, then I need the support of someone.
Yeah, certainly you can work through every issue on your own, but just the simple field that's held by a community of support. That in the past they've made church a thing about, it's something God wants you to do, and I'd offer that church isn't for the Creator. Church, being in a community of love, is a way to get support for your own process and to clean up your world. Just that field of support lifts and makes a difference. It's like when we're doing a still point breathing session. Yes, you can still point breathe yourself. The tool actually is ultimately meant to be used for yourself, by yourself. However, in the initial phases, we always suggest that you have a support person with you. And that opens a field that lifts people up. Sometimes people will try to do the forgiveness process on their own, and they find it the still point breathing process, but they just can't get the energy moving, where that space of support of another person is a thing that can open that and create awesome results in a very short period of time with the help of our friends. And so Jeannie has just gone into our destination. I'm still sitting out in the car, and so I presume that she's probably in the process of getting on the web. And therefore, if there are any questions, if anybody's on the phone, you can call in now, 646-200-4169, and she'll be able to check out the chat room and see if there's anything happening there that we need to be aware of. Are you with us, Jeannie? Well, not yet. I just dropped her off, so. Oh, there, I hear a phone in the background. Is that you, sweetie? Not quite. Okay. So anyway, this idea of moving through, the frustrations, the hostilities, the fears that we inherited and had reinforced from our power person are so important to do. And, of course, many people are always on the run, taking the geographic cure. Well, I just have to get away from this person. I just have to get away from this town. I just have to get away from this city. I just have to get away from. And, the problem we point out with the geographic cure is when you take it, every time you take the geographic cure, you go along. If you could take the geographic cure and not be there when you got there, then things might be different. But you are going to be there, and your whole reality structure is going to be there, and everything you've dissociated from is going to be there until you finally decide to go, oh, I think this is mine. I think I need to change this. And when you do that, then everything starts to change because you get to face the unforgiven. What is the unforgiven? The unforgiven is any form of hostility or fear that can be produced in your physiology. That's the unforgiven. It is not the people in your life. It is not yourself. Forgiveness does not apply to people. Forgiveness does not apply to self. Forgiveness is what you apply to change what is based in hostility or fear inside of your own structure. And the worksheet process is on the website under Download Worksheets. The website is whyagain.com. And you're certainly welcome to jump on and download that worksheets. And all the other worksheets are there under that link. The first worksheets are the reality management process. There are a couple of radio shows there. The third and fourth link are radio shows where we walk somebody through the forgiveness process. So if you're not sure what to do with that worksheet once you've downloaded it, once you've downloaded Chapter 24 from my book, if you don't quite get it, because actually the worksheets change quite a bit. I'm working on still another new Chapter 24. But if it doesn't make sense, then just click on the MP3, download link number 3 under Download Worksheets, and number 4. Each of those is a radio show where we walked people through a forgiveness worksheet process, and it'll give you the whole step-by-step directions. You've got a personal session right there to walk you through there, and you can put that MP3 on your computer, on your iPod, on your tablet, on your whatever, on your phone. Listen, pause it when you get to a step, and fill in the blanks, and watch what happens in your mind. Jeannie, do I hear you there in the background?
Yeah, sorry, it's real noisy in here, so I turned it on and then turned it off real quick. But we are back on, and in the chat room, Nene has been having conversations with some people, and so anyway, calling number. Pardon?
I was just thanking Nene for the support of talking with people in the chat room. Nene is doing some awesome work. It's just, we spent some time with her in Fort Lauderdale before we left, and it is so fabulous to watch what that woman has done in a year. She came to her first workshop on January 2nd in Fort Lauderdale when there last year, and she has turned so much in her life upside down and around the other way. Nene, we acknowledge you, and the work you're doing with people is fabulous, and we thank you from the bottom and from the top of our hearts. So do we have any questions in the chat room, sweetie, or are there any callers? Is Dr. Tim with us by chance?
Dr. Tim is not on yet, and what Nene is talking about in the chat room, she said in her culture, as a Latin woman, being single is seen as, what's wrong with you, by being single. And it's one of the challenges that she's had to forgive, and that she's done a lot of worksheets and breathing. And last night at Tango, at moments, her content was triggered by seeing other couples together, including her ex, and she had to really breathe and tap into her true essence. And by the end of the night, that she was moved to peace. And then she realized that, she says, I received so many compliments on my vitality, looking healthy and vibrant, in her personality. And this morning there's still some tears. She did about 20 minutes of breathing, and so she asked for support in holding the space for her to clear that out.
Well, Nene, you certainly have that, and I think it's awesome that what you're sharing, and I hear from our conversation before we left Fort Lauderdale a couple of days ago, you were sharing that there was a man, and for those who don't know Nene, she's a certified teacher of WISE, is happening to me again, and she also teaches dance. And there was a young man that she had met a short time ago who wanted to date her, and all of a sudden had this whole list of instructions in what was wrong with her in the way she was doing things. And instead of having to be right about it, instead of having to enter into a big argument, and instead of being forced by the cultural idea that she has to have a man, she was able to just say to him, well, you might be right about that, and so that's okay, bye. And she was able to just let that go rather than be forced back into the corner of the control game that many people play in relationships. So I really acknowledge you, and it doesn't surprise me in the least that there's another layer of that coming forward for healing. But Nene, that's just such a fabulous and awesome piece of work because, normally because of that cultural pressure, and, there's one of the Beatitudes in the Aramaic, the one that we're told says, blessed are they mourning their wrongs, for they will be comforted, really speaks about how we access a neural structure that God implanted in us to guide us to happiness and well-being. So it says a latent neural structure implanted by God to guide you to happiness and well-being will become your conscious possession, you who, and the Beatitude, the second one is, you who look into your errors in thought and the errors of your society. And certainly it is an error of the society to say that you do the right thing for the wrong reason. You're a woman, you're supposed to have a man, you're supposed to be in a relationship. So you do that because that's what you have to do in order to be approved of or accepted. And that's doing the right thing for the wrong reason. If you're stepping into a relationship because it's a space of support for healing and moving through things, awesome. But when you're doing it for the wrong reasons, that's one of the cultural errors. And for you to be able to break through that one, to break it down, and not be forced into compliance with that, Nene, is awesome. And if you have any thoughts, Nene, that we could chat about that stirs, I would love to hear your sweet voice on the phone. So you know the number if you want to call. And or if anybody else has any questions, we would be delighted to hear from you. 646-4169 is our number. Jeanne?
Yeah, Nene says some ladies asked her, how can you manage to be so peaceful when your ex is here with another woman? And she replied, come to my healing workshops and you'll learn. It's a whole...
good for her.
Yeah. And we do have a caller on the line. We actually have two callers. The first one is area code 970. You're on the air.
970, welcome. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello, 970. You are on the air with us. You're live. We'd love to hear your sweet voice.
Oh, I don't know why you can't hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
Oh.
Who are we speaking with?
This is Carrie, Michael.
Oh, hi, Carrie.
Hi.
How are things in Colorado?
I don't know why. For some reason, my phone isn't working right. Let me try this microphone and get it. Can you hear me now?
You're loud and clear now. You're still in Colorado?
Oh, good. No, I'm back in Florida. And guess what? I just got this awesome caretaking job, and I am so excited. I can hardly sit still. But I have to tell you, and I just wanted to say what I was just listening to you guys talking about is so awesome. I just love hearing those kind of stories about Nene. I thank her and you guys for sharing that really good relationship healing stuff. What I wanted to share with you and just get your insights on in applying for this job and in coming in getting flown out there to get interviewed for it and just really wanting the job and worrying that maybe I wouldn't get it. I knew there was some really strong competition. I thought, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do a bunch of worksheets and on whatever my issues are around this. And it's interesting because I have these patterns. Now that I've been doing the worksheets for a couple months or so, I'm seeing these patterns emerge. I guess, you probably already know that, huh? And so I guess one of my main ones that seems to come up on a lot of them is I'm not good enough and there's something wrong with me. And then the work that you kind of taught me on the our power person and how there's those 3 stress levels with the power person, and my middle stress level is basically leaving or running away and kind of saying, well, screw you, this will get back at you, or but just leaving. And I have realized it has left my life a wreckage, because I've never had anything really I've had consistency at different periods of time, but then when I've left, I've ended up with no consistency. And it's interesting because I've had several relationships, and when I've left, and it wasn't always me who made the choice to leave the relationship. The other person might have chosen to end it, but it still was me who chose to leave. And I can see it in this pattern with my power person as a child. And then also related to that, I can see I've never taken anything. You know, I left a marriage and a business that I had co-built with somebody else, and I didn't really take anything. And I can see that goes back to the, you know, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, I'm not deserving, and kind of also fear of just of bringing it up. You know, I've been terrified to even ask for anything. But I can see this sort of, you know, I've always felt like I was kind of living outside of the norm and that was okay, but I'm kind of seeing how I haven't created a really strong home and consistency just for myself, and I think it's because of this pattern, you know, from my childhood with my power, that developed with my power person. So these are all issues I was working through in a relationship to being worthy of receiving this job even. And because it will give me consistency, it will give me a regular income, it'll give me a comfortable home, it'll give me an opportunity to really develop my other work. And anyway, I just wondered what you would say. I'm excited.
Well, my thought would be to make sure that this doesn't become another geographic cure. In order to do that, the other thing that I hear you, aside from leaving in relationship, which is probably a 77 times 70 worksheet issue, and probably exactly what your power person did, although they may have been there physically, they left. They weren't available. But the other one is the hostility of the power person. Notice that along with that leaving went screw you. And that's hostility. And what you'll find is, as you forgive and let go of that drug hostility, one of the things we point out in our codependence workshop is that the hostility is a drug that always is used to anesthetize against pain. And so probably you're going to touch into a lot of pain around those times when your power person left. And
that's a really good point. And what I realized, you know, I've been doing worksheets on the guy that a relationship just ended with. But this started taking me into a deeper level with the stuff that was even behind that relationship ending that goes back to my power. So I started doing stuff with my dad now that is, I feel like I'm sort of like open wounds, you know.
Yeah, and that's where you want to be careful that you allow those wounds to stay open until you clean the necrosis out at the deepest levels. Because the tendency is in our culture is to say, well, you know, okay, you've done enough of that. Let's just close the wound over. Let's just seal over top of it so you don't have to deal with this. And, of course, then it becomes what defines you. And you want to open that fully, completely, totally, 100% until you've totally and cleaned out every necrotic thought and every piece of necrotic tissue that goes with it. And that's something that's going to take some time. And you know, maybe Nene, if she's available, could call in and join us in this conversation because she started a year ago. She did her first workshop on January 2nd in Fort Lauderdale, and she got the forgiveness process, and she started to do and has done 5 worksheets a day since then. And I think the last time I talked to her, she said she's actually done between 5 and 10. But she's gone through so many layers of this, some deep experiences with her dad, and several layers of that. In the intensive at Heartland, she went through like a mega layer with her dad leaving, and then she went through another layer where her brother, you know, she's from a Latin culture, and I guess the tradition in a Latin culture is man marries woman, gets woman pregnant, leaves her home barefoot, and goes off and goes to bed with somebody else. And so she, as a 6-year-old girl, one of the things that she got in touch with, she shared, and she shared it on the show, so I'm sure I'm not sharing anything out of school, but she shared how she was about 6 and watched her brother with his wife and bringing another woman into their home, into her parental home where she lived as a 6-year-old, and watching her dad protect her brother and allow this to happen. And she really loved her sister-in-law. And so to watch this be done as a 6-year-old, she was bewildered and pain. That's the kind of thing that has to surface and work through. And so Nene has gone through so many layers of this. And about 2 months ago, she was working with this fellow she was in relationship with and went through several layers of that. And then just this weekend, she shared as we were there that, she was able to say to this fellow who wanted to make sure that she was controllable and correctable on all of her behaviors and that she did it the way he wanted her to, was able to say, and instead of, well, I'm so needy, I'll take anything or anybody, she was able to say, well, this really isn't workable. I don't have to go into this and get beat up to learn that this isn't going to work. I can say thank you. I'll enjoy being with myself right now and let this go.
That's awesome. That is so
neat.
It
is awesome. I mean, to move from totally steeped in the Latin culture, and I don't know, as Nene called in, I would hope that she might join us in this conversation because she's such an awesome model of this. In fact, I'd suggest to her that she write a book on her experience of healing for women. And
you know what? I'm from a half of my family's Lebanese, and that kind of Arab culture was very oppressive to me as a child. A little bit different than the Latino, but very, very oppressive, and to me as a woman as well. And it's been a lot of having to grow out of that.
Probably about 10 times the Latin culture.
Yeah. Nowhere near the lightness that the Latin culture has, pretty serious stuff. So, so I have a question, because you said be careful I'm not taking the geographic cure. I mean, right now I feel like I'm just really struggling economically, and this is, I'm really going to this because it is a job that is going to support me and taking the next. I feel like I'm choosing it for a healthy reason.
My point there wasn't the physical geographic cure. Obviously it's going to really support you. My point is that you continue to do your work. The geographic cure can be done anywhere. It's when one says, this is going to solve my problems, rather than, this is going to support me and empowering me to be able to do the next level and the next layer of my work. Then it's time to pick up and move. And certainly, I hear you loud and clear. I think it sounds like this is going to give you the space to do your other work, to do your own healing work. To get to the other end and go, now see, all my problems are solved, that would be the geographic cure, as opposed to continuing your process and cleaning up whatever's next in the layers.
I'm excited to hear about Nene's doing the worksheets for a year, and because that's my goal, is to just keep doing these every day. And I just want to grab my friends and say, come on, you guys, you're going to do these worksheets, because I really feel myself shifting so much on the inside, and yet I feel like I've only dipped in a little ways, like you said, into the deep necrosis that's in there. But every day is a revelation doing those worksheets, really is, at how I can perceive things differently, how I could have perceived them differently then, and how I can change history by perceiving them differently now.
Exactly. That's the big key, is working through those issues is so important, and to continue drilling down into those deeper layers. When you recognize that what we are the inheritors of is pretty much 1,000 generations of some pretty deep insanity, and I mean deep craziness, and to just keep being able to surface. There's a wonderful word in Aramaic. It's actually not a word. It's a suffix. And this suffix is added to a word, and when you add it to a word, it indicates that whatever word you're adding it to, that condition in the mind, number one, is unconscious, and number two, it's controlling both perception and behavior. So when you add a suffix to a word in Aramaic, the suffix is uta, O-O-T-A. So let's say the word vicious is sneh in Aramaic. So if we said someone is sneh, that would mean that, I've seen Charlie over there be pretty vicious with people. But if Charlie walked in the room in his viciousness, we would say Charlie is being snei uta. He is being controlled, and his behavior, perception, and decisions are all being run by this unconscious or dissociated part of his mind. It's built right into the Aramaic language. That's how deeply they understood it. And so whenever we're not acting out of our humanness, whenever the awesome physiological presence of love isn't there, we're in those Uta brain cells. And we don't know it because it's unconscious. You know, if you've ever done something, you know, how many of us haven't done something, you said, I don't know why I did that. Well, that's where those Uta brain cells come in, something from the unconscious level, something that maybe has too much pain and trauma in it, too much hurt, and I don't want to drill down and feel that. I don't want to drill down and deal with that. So what does it do? It defines my behavior. In the Aramaic, you'll remember they said that nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. In essence, they were saying to people who said, I don't want to deal with that, was, baby, you don't have a choice. It's going to happen. It's going to come up. It's going to define you. It's going to define what happens in your relationships and in your life. So we can go one of two ways. We can either get hit by the cosmic 2x4 when we draw this situation in to do it to us again, or we can keep drilling down until we clean out all the Uta brain cells. I don't believe it's natural for a human being to have an unconscious mind. I think the word unconscious is a reference to a totally artificially induced state in our humanness. And as we heal, as we forgive, we'll get to the point where we are in touch with everything that is in us at all times. And that would be the normal human. Pardon me, not normal, the natural human. The normal human is totally dissociated, totally unconscious, totally functioning out of those Uta brain cells and having no idea what drives their behavior, why they said this, why they did that, why they have this person in their lives. They say, I love you, I honor you, I cherish you, and now I'm going to puke all over you. You know, we have songs in our culture that say, you only hurt the one you love. It's like, duh. How crazy is that? That's those Uta brain cells. And by and large, our culture has just stayed out of them, and they're only a brave few. And I acknowledge you, Carrie, for being willing to jump in there and do it. And I certainly acknowledge Nene and David. David just did such a huge piece of work in the last few months, and it's an ongoing piece of work. David and I haven't spoken recently about this, but a couple of months ago, David's son, at 37, was found dead after a party, and just what David has gone into and dealt with, both in his lineage with his father, in his own relationships, and then his relationships with his sons, and the whole culture that he comes from. I mean, it's amazing that there are so many courageous people showing up who are doing that work. It's just fabulous.
Yay. Well, Michael, thank you so much, and I'll let whoever's behind me come on board. And you guys have an awesome day, and thank you so much for doing this work and for being so incredibly supportive. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Well, we're delighted to be on your support team, and we'll look forward to seeing you in January when we get back to Florida.
I might already be gone, actually.
Okay. Well, if we don't catch you then, we'll catch you down the road.
We'll be in touch. Yeah. Take care.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Michael, we do have Nene on the phone. However, there's another caller ahead of her, and it says Jessica Jackson. You're on the air.
Hey,
hello,
Jessica.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
We can. You're loud and clear. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I was just calling. I listened to the show a few times back, and I decided to just listen in today. But since you guys are taking calls, I just wanted to share like kind of what I'm going through. I'm going through things where like I've been holding in a lot of anger and just frustration, and I'm just really trying to let that go. I was just wondering if I could get your advice specifically for me as to how I could remove that anger, because I feel like it's in my gut, in my stomach. I wake up in like stomach pain sometimes. I was just wondering if there's ways I can help release that.
Welcome to the human race. You're now on a par with all of us other humans with that kind of stuff in your physiology. That's what our inheritance has been for too long and too much of the time. And the forgiveness process will be your key tool. That'll be the starting point. And if you don't have that tool, you can go to www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheet. That's the place to start. And you'll start to unravel that. And, there are a whole set of tools. We've actually got 15 different DVDs that are, recordings of live workshops on each of the tools. And each of the tools, if you were in intensive and you asked that question, I would turn to the board and, everybody who'd been in the intensive for a while would kind of grin and laugh because I'm going to write on the board all of the above. Every tool we've got, that's everything we talk about. Is how to do that.
WHY you said?
WHY, the word Y, and then the word again.com.
Okay.
And so the worksheet is there under Download Worksheets. It's on the right-hand side. It's about the 6th link down. And that's where you'll find the tool of forgiveness.
Oh, okay.
And as you do that, there are instructions there for it. There are a couple of radio shows there, and you're welcome to download those radio shows. The 3rd and 4th link are 2 different radio shows where we guide somebody through that forgiveness process. And so you can just click on that, and it will. You can listen to us walking somebody through the forgiveness process. So you'll have a custom set of instructions for doing the forgiveness work, and that's the place to start. And every other tool, as David said earlier in the show, I don't know if you were listening, but he was talking about how there are different tools for different purposes. And so we have a whole range of tools, and we're happy to support everybody in utilizing those tools and bringing them forward into your life. That's what we're here to support you in. And we're happy to answer every question that we can possibly answer that you have about anything that we're talking about.
Yes, I feel like you guys are talking directly to me during the show about things going on. I'm trying to move forward, but I feel like, there's a few things that are holding me back, regret and things like that. I'm feeling powerless.
I understand. So what you would do, it would be, the worksheet would look like, what are you pointing that regret at? Well, maybe if with Carrie that we were just talking about, she had just moved out of a relationship, so it might be regret and loss at not having had the fulfillment of the relationship. So there would be several worksheets that could be done around that. You start the worksheet out with a target, whoever your object of attention is. So the object of attention could be relationship. The object of attention could be self. The object of attention could be the person you're in relationship with. The object of attention could be the grief. Number 1A could be grief. And the situation would be loss of my dream. So that could be a good worksheet. And how do I feel? Hurt. That would be one worksheet. Then the other one might be sad, and so that would be a second worksheet with that object of attention in that situation. So loss of relationship, hurt. What's the thought? That's what makes my life mean something. So without that, my life is meaningless. Then what's the punishment thought? What do you want to do to them? Well, I want to scream and rage at them. What do I want to do to myself? I want to just quit. I want to leave. I want to disappear. So that might be the starting point of a worksheet around that type of situation. And then going down to number 3, what did I want? I wanted this awesome, wonderful, fulfilling relationship. Okay, so then now number 5 is where you cancel the goal for that. And canceling the goal, there are several. I'm not sure. If you look through the archives, I think we did a couple of shows that will be labeled as about explaining the forgiveness canceling process. And we've only got a few seconds left, but just rather quickly, you cancel the goal to have a wonderful, fulfilling relationship, not because that isn't a wonderful goal, but because when you put it in your mind, it accesses and goes to your hostility or fear, your loss, your grief. And so when you cancel that goal, what happens is you get to break open and see the part of the mind that holds the pain, and that's how you get to work through it. So that's, unfortunately, our time is up. If you would like to call tomorrow, we'd be glad to start the show out with this conversation. Nene, I apologize we're not going to get to you. Everybody, please support us. Bring somebody to the show tomorrow with you and get ready to create the best year yet of your eternal lives. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanne, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanne are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanne, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.